Playing catch up on some headlines. Just baseball show for Tuesday, August 20th. As always, it's presented by BetMGM. Jack, Aram, happy moving week to you.
Yeah.
So you just described on the call up that you're going New York to Chicago to Nashville, New York to
No, Nashville,
Nashville.
New York to Nashville. Yeah.
How are we getting there? I'm gonna pull up
I'm flying. I'm flying to Nashville. So I'm meeting my girlfriend in Nashville who's driving from Chicago with all of her stuff and the dog. We're gonna catch a series in Nashville there,
Yeah.
drive the rest of the drive back down to South Florida where I'm moving, but may do a pit stop or two to see some draft guys somewhere within the Florida State League. So might get a couple fun pit stops in there. Get to be able to see some good minor league talent, but the moving process, the packing process is not a fun one. And I still, if you look behind me, have quite some work to do before Wednesday.
That's okay. So how are you getting the stuff down? Are you just checking a bunch of bags?
I'm leaving quite a bit of the very cheap stuff that I purchased here in the street, and then I am going to ship a lot of the other stuff like today and tomorrow. So
So can I tell you what I did? So I recently got rid of my dining room table and chairs because I'm moving in like a month and a half or so. And I just like put them outside. I had some chairs that I wanted to
yeah,
get
that's the move. Out here, dude, it gets taken real quick.
real quick.
Also, the only thing I'm really prioritizing right now is got to ship the cards, all the baseball cards,
Mhm.
and those things got to be
Fragile.
taken care of,
Yeah.
insured, everything. That's the thing I'm most nervous about because I can't bring them all. So, uh, yeah, hopefully FedEx does right by the baseball cards. Otherwise, that would be a tough blow.
You remember those lock boxes that eBay had when we were at the All-Star game in Seattle? You know
Yes,
what I'm talking about?
yes,
Do you have
yes.
one of those?
No, but I would need 8 of them.
Really? Like they can only hold so much?
Yeah, I have way too many cards here. Way too many. They might be doing me a favor. If I insure it and they lose it and I can just get that money, that might be worth it.
Got you. Yeah, I just pulled up maps with by the way, just learned that's Aaron Judge's favorite app. And people were trying to clown Aaron Judge for maps being his favorite app. Like, what would you want his favorite app to be?
I mean, that's just an honest answer. Like,
It's a good
what is
answer.
he supposed to say? Like, yeah, doodle jump? What other apps do you use?
Kevin Durant Doodle Jump. Verdugo said ESPN for UFC, which I was like, okay.
what? That's the one app I really don't use ESPN for UFC. That's like the one sport I don't use.
Yeah, I don't know, but like maps is one of my go-tos. I see Nashville, if you're making your way down, you could get to Montgomery to see the best lineup in minor league baseball.
Yeah. If it's on the way, it's all stops are open right now. We're willing to do anything. So I'm hoping to see some of the draft guys. So that's kind of the priority, I think, in the Florida State League.
Yeah, all right. Florida State League, I get. But I mean, Montgomery, before you get to the Florida State League, just think about it. Just think about it. So we've got a lot to get to again. We're headline hunting. The shitty one off the top that we got to get to, and some of them are pretty crappy, but the one that like really, really stings. And Peter and I were talking about this last night on the Monday show, the weekend roundup. And as we were recording, Brian Snitker said that the tests were inconclusive on Austin Riley's hand after he was hit by a pitch and he had to leave the game on Sunday. The tests in Atlanta are conclusive here. Austin Riley has a fractured hand. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. If this isn't a Murphy's Law season, I don't know what a Murphy's Law season looks like. There are a lot of years where you could say that teams are dealt the injury bug. And I'm even thinking about Cincinnati during spring training, where they lose McLean and Noelvi Marte gets popped, and they have some other guys that go down. It really stunk. But the Atlanta Braves, I was ready to like make the case that they were better on paper than the LA Dodgers were. And they've dealt with a season ending injury to Acuna. They've dealt with an internal brace for Spencer Strider. They've dealt with 2 months without Michael Harris. And now they're dealing with 6 to 8 weeks without Austin Riley. It eliminates his regular season, and we'll see if they get to the postseason for him to even work back from. This
Don't
very
forget Ozzy Albies either.
yeah, Ozzy Albies as well, man. Like this has been as bad of a string of luck that I've seen for a contending baseball team in a very long time.
Sean Murphy's missed most of the year, right? He only has 183 plate appearances at the time that we're recording this. it's been just brutal, absolutely brutal. That they're only going to get 25 starts out of Fried this year. Reynaldo Lopez has been awesome when on the field, but that's another guy that they might get 25 starts out of. So it's just been a disaster from just a health perspective, and that just happens some years. And I think the fact that they are still afloat is a testament to them. But there's been stretches where it's just been pretty rough. Riley had finally seemed like he was swinging it better over the last couple months, especially, and now you look at that offense, and of course they can still hold it down, but it really starts to drop off after the top. And I mean, all of a sudden you're looking at Arcia, a struggling Murphy, who's been coming on a little bit more of late. Whit Merrifield, Luke Williams, like this
Ramon
is
Laureano. Yeah.
yeah, like Ramon War. It is it gets pretty iffy pretty quick. You almost wish you could throw Travis d'Arnaud in some sort of position and have him swinging. Like I don't know. It's tough to watch. The rotation is clearly getting back there and healthy, and that can help keep them afloat paired with the bullpen, but it just doesn't feel like this is the year for the Braves. Even if they make it into the playoffs, it's like, man, like with what ammo at this point, it's tough.
There's nothing. There's no momentum to be built here. Like, which sucks. Kay, you will yourself into the postseason. You're already operating from like kind of a negative mindset. And I know, hey, you get into the postseason, anything can happen. It's like you're dealt the shittiest hand in poker and you're going up against a good hand in poker. I don't play enough poker to know what a good hand is, but like you go up against this team, whoever's on the other side, and you're at a competitive disadvantage at this point. And I did not think for a moment that at any point in the 2024 season that I was going to say the Atlanta Braves are worse on paper than this team. But that's what we could be talking about in a wild card series, in a division series.
And that was before you knew that Chris Sale was going to have a Cy Young season. Exactly. And that's the craziest part, right? Because if someone told you before the season started that Chris Sale is going to win the Cy Young, and it seems like, obviously he's got to do some more. He's got to hold it down, but he's the heavy favorite in the NL.
Yep.
You'd say, oh my gosh, they're going to waltz, right? With Strider and Fried and everything. So that part of it's even more absurd. But when you have a rotation in the playoffs that can be led by the Cy Young winner, potentially, Max Fried still has looked solid when he's on the mound and better of late. And then Reynaldo Lopez as well, who we just said has been fantastic. Like that trio can match just about anybody if they're all on. So that's the part that you have going for you. Of course, getting Michael Harris back is huge, but it just feels like every time they get someone back, of course, they end up losing somebody. Yeah. Matt Olson's been coming alive a little bit. Like there's silver linings. Marcell Ozuna is one of the best power hitters in the sport. And they did add Soler to just reinforce the offense a bit. They'd have to be pitching centric and their starters would just have to dominate. But that's the only way where I can really see it happening here, especially when you look at the fact that, even if they do get Riley back for the playoffs, like there's going to be Ross to shake off there. It's not like he's immediately going to be, Austin Riley. And it took him a little time anyways this year to become Austin Riley again. So they're in a unique spot. It's probably the worst case scenario. And I think it's a testament to how good the Braves are that their worst case scenario is still them, sitting in a playoff spot and still a team that you don't really want to run into in the playoffs, all things considered.
And dude, like it hasn't even been best case scenario at the AAA, AA levels. You would think, it's a testament to how strong they are in the minor leagues. Not necessarily. Like Nacho Alvarez did not look good in his first stint up. I'm rooting for him, but I'm just not sure if it's going to click the way that it did for Vaughn Grissom in 2022 that was. Yeah. But man, like it's tough. And Owen Murphy was throwing so well at the beginning of the year. He goes down, Tommy John surgery. AJ Smith-Shawver, I thought he was going to blossom into a mid-rotation starter this year. It hasn't happened. Like he's in AAA. Bryce Elder was an all-star last year. He's in AAA. Hurston Waldrop got hurt, and he didn't look good up in the big leagues his first go-around. So it's not necessarily, the minor league guys have been so good that they're helping the Braves. It's just like they had enough talent to survive. And that's where we're at here. And it'd be great to see him in the postseason, but man, they'd be going in with one arm and one leg tied behind their back. Yeah. So, absolutely brutal. Hunter Greene is the next guy that I want to talk about here. Hunter Greene just hit the 15-day injured list. He went with right elbow soreness. Apparently, David Bell told Charlie Goldsmith of the Inquirer. It might not be the Inquirer, but Greene's MRI looked encouraging, quote unquote. So that means no structural damage, I guess, at least on initial imaging from a guy that has already underwent Tommy John surgery. But this was the final piece of the puzzle for that Fangraphs screenshot
Yeah.
of the top 10 in terms of average fastball velocity, all of which have spent significant time on the injured list this year. And we'll see if it's significant time. Apparently, based on what I'm reading here, there is thought that Greene can come off the 15-day injured list as soon as the 15-day minimum is up. Having said that, all 10 of those guys, all 10 of the 10 hardest throwers in Major League Baseball last year among starting pitchers have spent time on the injured list in 2024. And we brought this up yesterday, man. Like, if you didn't think there was a correlation there, there's a correlation here.
Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think if you did it by pitchers who were previously the slowest tempo, I don't think it would be as clear cut. Like if you wanted to point towards the pitch clock or whatever. And I'm glad that that's kind of waned over the last few months. But it's clear that the harder you throw, the more liable you are to your body's not going to hold up, right? Generate more force. It's going to be difficult. He held up for a while. And it's been nice. And the thing with Greene is, it seems like he's got a good feel for his body, catches it early. Like, seems like over the last couple years now, he's avoided more of the serious stuff. It's usually some smaller ailments. He comes back and he usually looks really good. Last time out too, his fastball was actually up. He was throwing harder. And that's the thing. So if it was structural, maybe you would have saw a bit more of a dip in velo. So it's nice to see that he was still throwing hard. He's throwing a lot of pitches this year. I mean, he's gone 100 pitches in the majority of his outings this year, and they've pushed him to 111 in back-to-back outings this season. Like, they're letting him go. And that's fine. Like, I'm cool with it. But at the same time, let's appreciate it a little bit more then, right? Because we're just talking about the new rules not new rules, the stupid rules that they even floated about minimums and all that stuff. And where's the starting pitcher and the 5 and dive, blah blah blah. Hunter Greene's going out there darn near every single time and throwing almost 100 pitches or more. So like, these guys exist. Unfortunately, he's hurt right now, but this guy was out there giving you 100 pitches. I mean, as he hit the shelf, it was 5 straight starts of 100 pitches, and 3 of those were more than 105. And on 4 different occasions this year, he's thrown more than 110 pitches. So like, this is a guy that's been going after it. And like, it's not as common as we've seen in the past, but let's not pretend that guys aren't out there doing it. Greene is doing it. Unfortunately, here in the middle of August, end of August, it seems to have caught up to him a little bit. Seems like hopefully it's just more precautionary. I mean, if they're out of it, why even bring him back? Like, just have him coast into the offseason and come back 110% next year, I feel like.
I know. Counterpoint would be if, Cease takes a step back in one of his next couple of starts and the Pirates do opt to shut down Skeens, you could be looking at a guy that, was at one point contending for a National League Cy Young award. I think he finishes top 5 in NL Cy Young voting. So,
no doubt. And he's made that leap this year, which is awesome. But it also is worth noting that, this elbow discomfort comes as he hits a career high in innings by a decent margin here now. I mean, if you look at 23, I think it was 112 innings plus 14 in the minors, which would have put him at like 126. So that would have been the most that he had thrown. Actually, no, 2022, because he had 7 in the minors, would have put him at 132 and 2/3, which is the most. So that last time out pretty much cleared him fully across the board of, the most that we've seen him throw at 143 in the third. So, we'll see if they look at that as a marker or, if he wants to come back, make a couple good starts and, finish in the top 3 there and Cy Young voting, that would be pretty cool. And regardless, super successful season for him as a guy that has clearly made the leap into frontline starter at the big league level. And it's been really fun to watch him progress and develop. And it is worth mentioning though, Jack, if he finishes in 2nd or 3rd place for Cy Young voting, he gets $1 million. If he finishes 4th or 5th, he gets $750,000.
Let's go in that $1 million. Like, that's my thought. My other thought from the team perspective is I know a lot of teams want to see guys not necessarily significantly build on their previous career high if they're healthy, but noticeably build on their career high. And there's a difference between noticeable and significant. Significant would be a 40-inning push. Noticeable is a 20-inning push. He's at a marginal push right now.
And the point about getting that $1 million, he's only making $3.3 million this year. So he would happily welcome that $1 million incentive, or two, if he somehow gets it. But I think it's very realistic to finish second or third, and that million payday would, I'm sure, be quite nice for Hunter Greene, who signed that pre-arb deal last year.
It'd be phenomenal. Now, it wouldn't be that's just like kind of a ward based payout, right? Because that wouldn't be part of a pre-arb bonus pool because he forfeited his presence in the pre-arb bonus pool.
Yeah, I believe once you sign that, I believe you do not get that, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's only guys in the league minimum. I know what the highest earner in the first pre-arb bonus pool was Dylan Cease. That was right before he hit ARB1, which was really cool. So that is a fun little thing too. But Greene already got his payday. Now, is it, game-changing payday? Not necessarily. Like, he signed what? It was a $50 million deal, $60 million deal.
And that changes my game, but yeah,
right.
it
changes everybody's game.
But... Well, and it's for him. I think it was just okay. Lock it in for that's money for life here, and you're going to hit free agency after the club option at 30 years old, and then at that point he could sign another $100 million deal plus. But yeah, it was 6 years, 53 with escalators and all of these incentives that can end up bringing it up a decent bit. As we see, you might make an extra $1 million here this season.
Right. And at that point, like, one still absolutely matters. Now, if he was making 15, 16, it's like, you know what? I'm going to look out for 2025. But now it's like, that one's going to help me. Like you mentioned, 3.3 this year.
One of the more generous, though, I would say, incentivized contracts where even if he finishes anywhere from 6th to 10th each year, he gets $500,000.
Cool.
So, I mean, he could do that every year. Yeah, so that's why, like, there's escalators and incentives that can bring it up to $18.2 million higher. So, like, I mean, you think every year he's healthy, he's finishing 6 to 10 range in Cy Young voting, and he's getting an extra $500,000 a year, probably at least.
Yeah, that's legit. Another big money man, a much bigger money man in the same division is Christian Yelich. And Yelich did announce on Instagram and on Twitter that he was undergoing back surgery to finish off his season. He did that, I want to say on Friday, so we didn't get a chance to chat about that, but we've got that opportunity now. Season-ending back surgery. This is his second surgery, or did he do the rest and recovery thing his first time?
I think he did the rest and recovery thing the first time, but I might be wrong.
Is this his first time? Like, that's my question. If you guys know, hit us in the YouTube comments. Is this his first time actually going under the knife to deal with the nagging back thing? Because
I thought it was, dude.
It has been a nagging back thing. That's the thing. If it just popped up this year, I feel like he would opt for the rest and recovery thing, but this has been a problem since 2021?
Yeah.
At least he's addressing it now. Does it suck that he's going to miss this postseason push for Milwaukee? Yeah, it totally does. But at the end of the day, he's trying to play well into his 30s, and this probably offers him the best opportunity of doing that.
That's the thing. And I think the way that he played this year, just seeing what he can still do when he's not even at 100%. We're talking about a guy that was playing like the superstar that he has been in the past, right? Like 73 games this year. He had a 153 WRC plus. The guy slashed 315, 406, 504. So I have 21 bags. And I mean, he was in a lot of pain throughout the season. And he's 3 WAR in half of the games. Like, that's a 6 and change WAR pace in a 153 WRC plus. Like, that is top 10 player in baseball type of pace. And we know he's got that, right? It's been something that has clearly held him back through stretches where in the past he'd said it was excruciating. Like, coaches, his managers have talked about how, like, they are happy that he can now potentially have a solution. And I think when you would see those stretches where he's putting everything on the ground and just didn't look like himself, like, that had to be the back, right? And it just, there's something that's almost relieving for me about it, because I want to just see him turn that page and be able to just kind of go out there and not hold back. Because there are times where you're just watching him and it looks like he was holding back. So it said, I think the quote that he had was they're out of options. And I think that kind of says it all, right? Where just get right, focus on turning that page and being the best version of, like, your new body versus just trying to fend off this body that clearly needed some sort of repair. And back is tough. Like, I can't imagine, especially a guy that hits the way that he does. So I don't think he had any procedure before. So I think this was something that he was trying to put off and trying to put off and trying to put off. And now he can finally, focus on just getting himself right. Sucks that he's out, but it'll have him ready for next year. And this is a team that clearly is going to be a threat next year as well. I'm kind of glad he's doing it in a weird way, knowing that there was clearly issues and he was just on and off the IL, in and out of his form. This should be a relief for him. I can't imagine the mental tax on him as well.
No, it's brutal, man. And like I was watching this video that he put out to kind of announce that he was undergoing this surgery. And it was really hard to watch because, the front 30 seconds were pretty much him saying like, it just sucks. It sucks. And yeah, it does because you won an MVP. You were close to back-to-back, MVP type seasons. You had the best, 2-year peak that we've seen from a guy in quite some time. Like it's you and Trout essentially when it comes to a 2-year peak. I guess, hey, if you want to talk about Ohtani, like makes perfect sense, but Ohtani's in a class of his own. When we're talking position players, like it's really Trout. And then Yelich is right there with what he was doing, with how ridiculously dynamic he has been. And I know we've talked about that a good bit, that with that guy's build, with that guy's swing, with the way that guy plays, a lower back thing can suck so bad.
Yeah. And I think you look at the launch angle and you look at the exit velocities like from 2019, 2020, and then after 2020 is where it really started to bother him. And it's night and day. This year was the closest he has been from like a launch angle perspective. And I think just looking like comfortable. Yeah. But again, then it just all kind of came back and you could see the discomfort. So even if it gets him a little bit closer to where he was in 18, 19, 20, like we clearly saw that even banged up here, he's still performing. So it might allow him to tap into a little bit more power. It might allow him to operate a bit more freely. Like this guy was running the lowest strikeout rate of his career this year. Like he's still a stud. So I assume it's only going to help him. And, I'm excited for him to be able to turn the page and just go from there instead of, there's something about the cloud hanging over your head of like a nagging issue, right? That you just want, every time he struggles, you don't know if it's the injury or if it's just him struggling. Whereas now you can turn that page and just focus on Christian Yelich, the player. And at that point, if his body's barking at him, you can just say that, okay, that might be pointing towards the decline. But for a while now, it was just like, is this an issue that's fixable or not? We don't know. And now we'll find out.
And the fact that we are, in a place where he's willing to find out is great. And frankly, like good on him for addressing Christian Yelich, the person, in the future as well. Because how many guys have you talked to that have played a sport at a very high level and just have something nagging for the rest of their life? And it fucking sucks. They hate it. It's the worst thing in the world. Yeah. The amount of stories I've heard about knees and shoulders and backs from former players is ridiculous. Yeah. And I like that he's, like we hear it and it sounds, very stark and doomsday, but a lot of people worry about walking their daughter down the aisle. And the fact is, like, this could get to a point, if he never addressed this back thing and he played 8 to 10 more years on a bad back and he put himself in that position where, like, he could struggle to walk for the rest of his days. So I like that he's addressing it from Christian Yelich, the guy.
Well, and even just on top of that, I feel like it's a variable that's added to a sport that as a hitter, you just don't need another variable, right? Like he was 1 for 19 through his final 6 games until they shut him down. And the pain was just apparently just insurmountable. And you don't really know like when it's going to flare up or when it's not or whatever. So like he could be in the middle of a hot streak and then, oh no, my back's flaring up. That's going to cool it off. Instead of, oh, my timing's off. My mechanics are off, or pitchers are executing pitches, or I'm hitting him right at guys. He has this other unnecessary variable hanging over him, which is my back going to flare up this week? Yeah. And that could be in the middle of a slump and then make it worse, or that could end a hot streak where you're feeling really good. And that's kind of what it was this time. Like that's another thing that I couldn't imagine trying to manage hanging over my head. Baseball's already difficult enough as it is. So that side of it is hopefully a little bit freeing for him as well. And clearly some things clicked for him this year compared to the last few years where he looked like that complete hitter again, where he's hitting over 300. He's slugging again a little bit more too. And even stealing bags more than he was before. He's walking. He's getting on base at a 406 clip. We hadn't seen him get on base at a clip above 400 since 2019. So that's stuff you love to see.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna get to some other stuff, including a couple of guys making their big league call or making their big league debuts. But before that, quick break. Before the couple of big league debuts, we got to talk about Ketel Marte as well. The Arizona Diamondback went down with injury. I saw minor. Did you see what it was exactly, or is it like serious gravity?
They said ankle, so I guess the check swing trying to hold himself up just really hurt the ankle. I was nervous it was like an oblique thing, when you try to like check up or something, you can really like jack that up because you're engaging the core and going two different directions at the same time with your body. But it's officially ankle. And from that perspective, I think the D-backs need to look at their staff, their medical staff here. And well, I'm not saying I'm not calling for anybody's jobs or anything. I would never do that. But like maybe just have a little bit of a conversation here of like, did we push him too quickly? I know that he's playing at an MVP level. I know we're trying to win a World Series here, but this is the second time that we've had Marte go out there and he is left in a lot of pain. I understand that the MRIs or X-rays may say, okay, he can be out there. But when you see a player pulled twice, and I'd like to think Marte is a pretty tough guy. He's played through a lot of injuries throughout his career. I think you got to look at the medical staff here and have a conversation and say, hey, I think we maybe push this guy a little bit too much. We should probably not do that in the future because for him to have to be like helped off the field now on two different occasions. And it's not, we're not talking about coming off of a major injury, but this could turn into a major injury if you keep re-aggravating it, those ligaments and everything, like you're wearing at them. So, I mean, if it's a check swing, if that's what it was where he came out, like, come on, like we're pushing him here. So I'm glad he's hitting the IL. Let's get him right. And look, the D-backs are on a heater right now. They're winning games. I know he's a big part of that, but you ain't going anywhere in the postseason without this man. Corbin Carroll has been red hot, which we'll talk a little bit about at the end of the episode. Just get this guy right. Stop rushing him back, please.
So yeah, like when I said minor, I was thinking about the first one. I didn't see the check swing that got him out of the game, and now like I'm just looking and reading here. This is what 2:30. We started recording. Or 3:30, we started recording before this news came out that the D-backs placed Ketel Marte on the injured list, which, I mean, like, swapping out Ketel Marte and getting Pavin Smith into the fold, that's the last thing.
Kind of a wash, right?
Yeah, I think so. Offensively, it's a wash. Defensively, you're probably losing a little bit with Ketel Marte leaving the fold, and you get, Pavin Smith. He can do both, though, right? First base and corner outfield.
He's been awesome this year, I gotta say. Like, I'm joking about it being a wash, but Pavin Smith really has kind of blossomed into a guy that they actually relied on through smaller stretches last year, but this year has come along offensively. Obviously, it's easy to mash in the PCL, but 1,000 OPS there. He's walked as much as he struck out, and then in 29 big league games here, sporadic playing time at 800 OPS. Like, I mean, he's not going to even get close to filling the void of Ketel Marte, but usually the drop-off is so significant. Like the fact that the D-backs have some depth here where they can plug in a guy. Look at what Adrian Del Castillo has done, who continues to hit. Bringing him up, is he a surefire everyday catcher moving forward? I don't know, but is he better than a lot of other replacement level and bench players that other teams have? Yeah, and I think Pavin Smith is that too. So that's the good thing with the D-backs is, they've been able to kind of bring up these pieces that can keep them afloat. And I think Smith can do that. And yeah, he can play, infield and outfield for them, which is also helpful when they try to, just figure out how to put their best foot forward.
The problem is you're losing an MVP candidate. Which
yes. No, that absolutely stinks. But sometimes that results in like bringing up a guy that is a guaranteed, 200, 220, 280 slash line. And you're just stashing him on the bench and putting somebody else into more responsibility.
Bingo. Yeah. So, I mean, they do, get a guy that's fine in Pavin Smith, but here's to hoping it's just 10 days on the 10-day injured list. And, he can put this ankle thing to bed and we're good to go here for the home stretch.
Yes, sir.
Another guy, you mentioned Pavin Smith balling out in the PCL, another PCL masher. And we went in depth on these guys on the call up. So if you want kind of like the in-depth player breakdown on them, we're going to talk about 3 guys that are set to make their big league debut. Drew Romo already did. He played on Sunday. He was the corresponding move for Elias Diaz being released, which we clowned a little bit. Like, you should just trade him for something when you have the chance.
They could have. Yeah, they could have traded him last year. They could have traded him early this year. They probably could have even still gotten something at the deadline, like anything.
Instead, they release him because that's what the Rockies do. Shout out the Colorado Rockies. But Drew Romo is the newest Colorado Rocky. This guy was a former first round pick as a catcher out of high school in Texas. That was in 2020, that weird COVID draft. Romo is a bat to ball oriented catcher that is not going to hit the ball out of the ballpark too much. He's not going to strike out that much. He's never going to walk.
Yeah.
But you like the defensive value that he can provide behind the dish.
Yeah, and I know that the Rockies are very excited about that too. The way that he kind of commands a game back there for a guy that's still 22 years old to be 23 in like a week and change, but super advanced with the way that he handles the staff. I think receives well. The blocking could come along a little bit, but great at limiting the running game as well. Like this is a guy that should be a plus defender as he, fully blossoms and gets more reps and settles in at the big league level. Offensively, it's going to be interesting because he had like 1 year where he was better from the right side, another year where he's better from the left side. This year he's been the most even between the two. But when you look at the splits away from home, man, like we talked about it a bit on the call up, like Albuquerque's close to what it's like in Denver. And so like, yeah, he can rake there. That's great. And he's got a good feel to hit. Crazy chase rates, as you alluded to. But the home road splits are pretty crazy. 351, 383, 569 at home, 232, 286, 413 on the road. So that's a 952 OPS versus 699. Of course, if he matches at home and he's a 650 OPS on the road at the big league level as a good defensive catcher, that's fine. But there's either going to be a lot of pressure to mash at home or a lot of pressure to not fully stink on the road. I think they're going to be patient with him because of the defensive ability, because he's a switch hitter, and because there is good bat to ball. And, you alluded to this, like when you have plus contact rates, like that is going to work in his favor at Coors Field. So I do think the spacious aspect there is going to help him hit for some more average and just be pesky. I think this is a big league regular catcher, whether it's right away or there's some growing pains because of the aggressive approach. This is the catcher of the Rockies' future. And, I think he's going to be their guy for a long time.
Yeah, and like I'm also thinking they have plenty of time. They have nothing but time to let him try and figure this out. They had time when Tovar came up. Now that Tovar is not even a finished product yet, but now that Tovar is close to, complete in terms of blossoming into a top 15 shortstop in all of baseball, you've got plenty of time for Romo too. Like we're still pretty damn far off with this. And I already paid Tovar. It's great. He's not going anywhere. You're in year 2 of your 6 with Brenton Doyle. I'm sure they're going to pay him at some point too. So we'll see what happens on that front. But there's no rush for Drew Romo to immediately be an 800 OPS guy at the big league level. He is going into as zero stress of an environment as there is in Major League Baseball. That's not in Chicago or Miami. So I think he's in a good spot to blossom, even if it takes some time.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been stress at Coors Field. At least there has been, but not in a little while.
Yeah, I'd say not since Tulowitzki was at short.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Probably. Okay, let's go to the 2 guys in Detroit here. There's minimal stress there right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to start to be some stress there in a year or 2. Trey Sweeney and Jace Jung both get up for their big league debuts. Spencer Torkelson was recalled. This lineup is looking closer and closer to the one that is going to don the field in April of 2025. We'll go Jung, then we'll go Sweeney. Jace Jung is a guy that was flirting with an 850 OPS all year long in AAA, played a ton of third base. Keith is the long-term answer at second. And we talked about this. If Jung can hold down third base defensively, the bat is going to play, and he's going to be an everyday player for the Detroit Tigers when they're good again.
Yeah, it's like, is the ceiling as high as his brother's? Probably not. But you feel pretty good about his probability of being a regular there too. Like he backspins as well as anybody. You mentioned on the call up, right? Is like he feels like he has a God-given ability to backspin the baseball, and I mean he really does. He elevates and he backspins it. I think part of that grip and that setup helps him do that. So I mean, if you're getting 25 homers, maybe a little bit more when he's having a really good year, high walk rate, and decent defense at third, like you take those pieces any day of the week. And it seems like he can definitely be that. What stood out the most to me this year has been the improvement swing decision wise. Like he's darn near plus in that department this season, which is huge because he's a guy that definitely needs to walk because it's not going to be 35 homers and he's not going to hit 290 or 280. So if it's going to be 260 with 20 to 25 homers, maybe 30 in the good years, you got to walk, right? To really bolster that offensive profile. And he does that. So I feel good about the floor. I mean, this guy that's walked almost as much as he struck out this year. The contact rates have gotten better. It's really nice to see this core coming together here in Detroit. And I think Jace, it really does come down to that defense, like you said. And they've been playing him nonstop at third, knowing that since Keith's got second base locked down. And I think he'll be able. I think he's athletic enough to be a fine third baseman.
He may not be a part of that core moving forward, but Trey Sweeney was acquired in that Jack Flaherty deal from the Dodgers, along with Tyrone Lorenzo, who has been one of the better performers in minor league baseball over the last several weeks since coming over to the Tigers. Trey Sweeney's kind of up there too, and he immediately went to Toledo, and he was spraying the ball really hard all over the ballpark, was holding it down at short. And now he comes up to play some shortstop. Sweeney is a taller guy that moves surprisingly well for his size, can really hit right-handed pitching. There are some deficiencies there. I don't necessarily think they care right now, because you want to talk deficiencies at shortstop, they have the poster boy of that. And
I think, I was gonna say, aside from the Marlins, I don't know if there's a worse organizational situation than the Tigers. Yeah.
They remedied it to a certain extent with the Flaherty deal at the deadline.
It's better. It's a reasonable plug and play. I think they probably favored Sweeney over maybe a more highly regarded lower level prospect. Of course, I don't know what the negotiations were, what they looked like, but I mean, would you be surprised at all if Scott Harris had the option between Trey Sweeney or, a higher upside, lower level prospect that plays a different position, if he pivoted to Trey Sweeney? Because legitimately the only other shortstop that projects as an everyday shortstop in their system is the guy that they just drafted out of high school.
I'm trying to think about the Yankee thing, because I saw those reports, and I don't know how valid those reports were, that there was a deal in place for Jack Flaherty, and what medicals said, like the Yankees said no or something because of, red flags in the medicals, all that. That might be a media spin. I have no idea, but let's just think like, okay, sake of the exercise, the Yankees pitched, I don't know who, Augustine Ramirez before this deal.
Oh, instead of Lorenzo or something.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Augustine Ramirez, and then, pitching prospect or something, maybe salvage. Like they're
not going to give you Peraza. Like he's just not going to, like, you're not going to trade him. So
they might have very well sided with the good lower level catching prospect, thinking that Dingler can bridge to another guy, and gone with the upper level shortstop, knowing that they're going to need a solution to the shit that they've been running out at short the last couple of years.
Well, they're not going to sign anyone, right? Because, they already have way too much money committed to Javier Baez. Yeah. And I don't know if Sweeney's an everyday shortstop at the highest level, right? But if you only put him out there against righties, there's a chance he can be a league average hitter out there, give you flashes of above average power, play fine defense, and that can hold it down for you, because you don't want to go into next year, if you're Detroit, with a gaping hole at shortstop and no contingency plan for Javier Baez if you finally decide to cut bait there. So Sweeney just being somebody that can at least, hold the bulk of the platoon. Maybe you bring in a lefty masher that can play some shortstop, and all of a sudden you can kind of platoon your way into getting by next year. This is a team that could have a chance next year. So I like the idea of bringing in Sweeney. There's a chance he gets his doors blown off and he's not ready. But seeing the way he swung it outside of the PCL and seeing those EVs be plus, and I know you watched him do it for a whole series, like that really was encouraging. And I do think that there could be a part-time player here and bulk platoon. And then once you find a long-term shortstop, Sweeney's a great utility guy. And that's what when we wrote up the Yankee system, and then later on the Dodgers, we had him as like that 45 future value guy that is a great bench piece that you end up playing 3-4 days a week, because he can play all over and run into some homers, and you just don't have ever faced lefties. I really like that he's just an option for them, because Kreidler just wasn't going to do it. Eddie Leonard wasn't going to do it. Like they had no viable option otherwise. Sweeney is that. And, we'll see if it all works out, but he's at least a shot where if you go into next year with him and somebody else, hopefully not Javi Baez, you're not saying, oh my gosh, they're just punting again. I think this was an opportunity to give themselves a little bit of a chance next year and also fill in this year and see what they've got. And Lorenzo, by the way, has been incredible, over the last couple of weeks with West Michigan and High A.
Amazing. OPS over 1,100 in his first 15 games in High A. We're going to get back to the Tigers in a moment. Before that, Jasson Dominguez was the 27th man for a special event game. 27th man in the 5-hole, 0 for 4 with 3 Ks, immediately returned post-game. There are head-scratcher transactions for me sometimes. There are very few blatantly wrong transactions to me. This was a blatantly wrong transaction. Why do you do this? Hey, man, your only game in Major League Baseball this year to this point will be in Williamsport on Sunday Night Baseball. You're in the 5-hole against Tarik Skubal. Okay, time to go back to Scranton. I hated this for Jasson Dominguez.
This was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And okay, there's a few reasons why this was so stupid. And like, I know there's a lot of times where teams, they just know something we don't. We always talk about that, right? And
no doubt.
You can never just blanketly say, we probably do it still sometimes because it's a daily show and, we're talking too much. But rarely can I say like, okay, I can't see the other side of this. This is just downright dumb.
This is one of the
this is one of the few instances where I can say I don't see the other side of this. This is downright dumb, and I'll give you a few different reasons why. Let's start on just the mental side of it. He has not even gotten his footing fully in AAA yet, and you bring him up while he already knows that he will be sent back down immediately. Of course, you want to preserve his rookie eligibility. I get that. Bringing him up for a bizarro game, and I love the game. Don't get me wrong; it's one of the best things that we do all year. But I mean, from a guy that is trying to get his footing at the big league level and was just trying to get his footing playing baseball, period, as he came back off of a second injury with the oblique, you bring him up then into this very unique setting that already probably adds to the nerves a little bit. This guy's barely played in the big leagues last year as well, a national TV game. And then you bring up the fact that he's facing the guy that's probably going to win the Cy Young. That's just the tip of the iceberg, though, by the way. He's had 40 plate appearances this year from the right side, which is where he would hit when he's facing a lefty in Tarik Skubal. He's hitting 184 this year with 15 strikeouts and 38 at-bats from the right side. I'm not worried about him long-term from the right side. I think he's made some huge strides in that regard. But when you're coming off of a throwing arm injury, which is that top hand, I believe it was the throwing arm, regardless, and you're coming off of an oblique that may have affected the right side more than the left side. I don't know. Or just it's harder to shake off the rust from the right side than the left side because his left side's way more natural. You're bringing him up into this unique, weird game on national TV, knowing that he's going to be sent back down right after this game, and then having him face the Cy Young favorite who pitches from the left side. So he has to flip around to the right side where he's hitting a $184 with a 38% strikeout rate. The hell did you think was going to happen? And also that the ball gets hit to him late in the ball game and he double clutches and the run scores. Of course, the game probably felt fast as hell to him. You brought him up into this weird game. He's playing in a stadium he's never played in before. I don't know what they were thinking. They could have went with a lot of other options. Maybe there was the 40-man implication side of it and there wasn't another guy in the 40-man that they trusted to you. I don't know. I don't get it. If they thought that this was a better option than just going left on left with Trent Grisham or something like that, I don't really know what they were thinking. Jason's going to be fine. He's used to the spotlight. He's used to, being able to handle the adversity. I'm not worried about it. But just a weird thing to do to a 21-year-old kid coming off an injury.
I would forfeit the spot in the batting order. If they view Trent Grisham left on left as forfeiting the spot in the batting order, I still do it. I don't think that's forfeiting a spot in the batting order, but man,
Oswaldo Cabrera could have started.
It makes way more sense to do literally anything else than grab your top prospect and shove him back up there for one game when he has played 26 games in Scranton this year. His other 14 games have been on a rehab. We can't be doing this, man.
And then just the fact that it's Skubal and the fact that it's the right side, that he has not even gotten close to getting going.
There are so many factors that made this a head scratcher with no counter argument that I can hear.
Here's one counter argument. all the little leaguers know who Jasson Dominguez is. Do you think there's any chance that Major League Baseball said, hey, would you bring this guy up for the game? It's on national TV. We want the Martian, Little League, special. Will you bring him up for one?
That would be so brutal if that was the reasoning.
Wouldn't shock me.
Oh,
Jazz Chisholm was soaking up every minute out there. You see, he's already mentoring kids to the big leagues. He's promising big leaguers.
he promised a kid.
He promised a big leaguer. Holy crap, man. If he can do that, he should be running academies and oh my gosh, he can make big money that way. He said he met a kid. He met a little leaguer. I love it. I love he's taking the time to get to know these kids. Just like he's always got to take it and make it like absurd. Right. Meets little leaguers, doing such a great job. Just, I'm sure he made so many kids, not even days, lives. They'll never forget it. And he's so much fun. But then has to just be like, yeah, this is my brother and I'm going to make him a big leaguer. Like, dude, you just did so many amazing things. Just roll with that. You were great on TV. You're great for the sport. I'm glad that you're having fun out there and you're the perfect guy to make the little league, whole event a success. And then now he's promising that this kid's going to be a big leaguer. And now like, he's gonna be working a really successful job like banking or something in 10 years and feel like a failure because Jazz Chisholm promised that he's a big leaguer. The guy just loves to say crazy stuff. I gotta start getting excited about it. I think
he's a Scott's tot, man. That's what he is. He's a Scott's tot. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know if I know what that means.
Scott's tots, Michael Scott. I wasn't a big Office guy.
Oh,
When he promised that entire class of like elementary schoolers that he was going to pay for their college tuition, and then he just like goes and breaks the news to them when they're graduating high school.
That was a good one.
Just Scott's totted himself.
That one was one of the few episodes where like I actually had to like look away for a little bit. I was so anxious about it.
I loved it. I was so locked into that one. So that was phenomenal.
So love everything Jazz did. And congrats on the new little brother. Hopefully he gets him to the show because that would be sick. If he calls his shot and gets that kid to the show, obviously it'd be a testament to the kid. But like
that's a testament to Jazz.
That's a testament to Jazz, either scouting or development or both. So you got a future if you get that kid to the bigs. You got 6 years to really I think get him going here.
No doubt. They all in Williamsport watched Tarik Skubal shove yesterday, and Skubal is so far and away the odds-on favorite for American League Cy Young. It's kind of gross, but
it's over now after Corbin's last bad start.
Got racked, annihilated, and Kirby got annihilated one-on-one against Skubal. Like they're just dropping like flies at this point. Gilbert lost in Pittsburgh. Like it's Skubal's at this point, but. Tarik Skubal, I saw something from AJ Hinch post-game. He said that's probably the last time that you're going to see Skubal on regular rest this year, which makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I like that. I
think AJ Hinch is one of the best managers in baseball, man. Like, and I don't think that's a hot take or anything. I know what he did in Houston. Don't get me wrong. But I think that guy understands his clubhouse and understands his guys and understands the situation and the layers that go into each unique situation, as well as pretty much anybody in baseball. And for him to acknowledge this when he has a world-class season from his ace going at full throat right now, the fact that he can say, hey, we're dialing it back and you're going to see him, skip a turn or maybe get, 6 days rest in between. That's a very mature thing from Skubal, from AJ Hinch, from the Tigers organization.
Yeah, and I think not just we're just going to shut you down. Like it's that slightly different approach where, hey, we still want him to keep throwing. And I think that might be the new norm, right? Is instead of fully shutting guys down, just if you're in a position where you can go an extra day, do it. I mean, Mize is building back up in AAA. He looks pretty good. So they can go 6-man rotation. They can skip. They can go a bullpen day. Who cares at this point? Your priority has to be just preserving this guy. He's at 155 in a thirds innings. The most that we saw him throw at the big league level was 149 back in 2021, but that was all. He didn't throw any in the minor leagues that year. So this is already the most he's thrown at any point. And, he's going to blow past that even with a few more starts. So might as well give him that extra time for his body to recoup. It seems like he's in a good spot. So no need to fully shut him down and like shock the body. I almost feel like we're going to get more research. This is totally speculative, but we're going to get more research in the future where it's like getting too extreme in the shutdown, then ramp back up might be too much, but you don't want to just fully go full throttle. I'm very interested to see how this goes and see how that like prepares him for next year. I'm glad they're doing something instead of just ignoring it and blowing past it too. So I'm glad they're not fully shutting him down either. there's just something about seeing a guy in a Cy Young season just go the whole way. And, I'd love to see him do that. So this is a perfect, I think, balance of the two. And for him to go 14-4, talk about win-loss and stuff like that. 14-4, that's the highest win-loss percentage of any pitcher in baseball to do that. I know the Tigers aren't bad, but they're not the Phillies. They're not the Dodgers. Like, for him to do that, it just shows you that every time he goes out there, he's given them a very, very good chance to win. Even his bad starts are like 7 innings, 3 runs. So, I mean, I think the bad one was like 6 1/3, 5 runs that we saw a couple starts ago. Like, you got a chance every time he's out there.
Tigers are out of it, so they're staggering Skubal starts. Do we see the Pirates do the same thing with Skeens? And like that, every time I see, a workload conversation brought up with Crochet, I thought about Skeens. With Skubal, I think about Skeens. With Greene, when he comes off the shelf, think about Skeens because he is a huge moneymaker for Major League Baseball. He is a huge driver to the ballpark in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and everywhere else he throws when he's on the road. I know the term shutdown has been thrown around with the Tigers on their 10 games, or with the Pirates on their 10-game skid, pardon. I don't know if shutdown is the right idea, but I could absolutely see, they're doing this with Skubal. We should probably do this with Skeens too.
He's looking like I don't want to say running out of gas because that would be a little extreme, but he does seem like he's feeling it.
Yeah.
And the command is tapering down a little bit. And I get worried about guys throwing fatigued. Like they say that, that's the one thing that I've read, and as many doctor pieces like James Andrews, everything, like any report I can read is that fatigued pitches are always, the most concerning because you start to break down even ever so slightly mechanically. And then that's going to put new strain on your arm and things like that. Maybe he takes that extra day and he recovers. Maybe he's just not recovering quite as easily instead of his body just fully being exhausted. Maybe he's not recovering as quickly. I would rather see them try that because, you mentioned the importance. You could see that when we were at the ballpark in Pittsburgh, like he wasn't even throwing that day. There's Skeens jerseys everywhere. He's the talk of the town. And even if you go there and he might not go more than 5 innings, I think you're still excited to go watch him pitch. I think having him go the rest of the season is fine, but I do think they should look for, and this is another rotation that can do it, especially with them being out of it. You could bring somebody up. You could throw anyone out there, really. They've got a lot of, kind of borderline depth type of arms that they could throw back out there and just buy Skeens that extra day. But that fastball velo has been closer to, 98 average, where it was more 99.5, for the other parts of the year. And I think also seeing that sinker command wane a little bit as well, like the splinker command is a little telling. Like that's a pitch that he was locating for a strike at 71% over his last 5 starts at 63%. Like I just think he's getting a little bit exhausted. Like I just think that he's feeling the 125 1/3 innings he has thrown and at just a lot higher stakes. I understand it's college baseball and what he was doing there too, but a lot of that was fastball. Remember, this splinker is a new pitch for him too, and that's a new thing for his arm to get used to as well. And he's been throwing the ball a little differently. It's been different throws than last year too, so he might be feeling it a little bit more in different places. He's throwing the slider a little bit different. Like I do think they should be very careful with him the rest of the way.
For sure, and you're right. Like they have enough guys to kind of spray the board and spread them out, and you can cater the rotation and how it's built around managing this guy throughout the end of the season. So I just love that we're there in baseball conversation where he's only sitting 98 over his last couple of starts. Like, damn, man, we're talking about a different cat. Couple super quick things to wrap. Rich Hill signed a minor league deal with the Boston Red Sox, which was hilarious and felt like such a foregone conclusion. Rich Hill literally did color commentary on the radio for the Red Sox in spring training for a couple of games. And now he's throwing in Worcester to a guy literally half his age in Kyle Teal, which was a hilarious bullpen to just watch. Like, hey, Teal catching Rich Hill's bullpen. That's where we're at. Over under 2.5 starts for Rich Hill in a Boston Red Sox uniform this year.
Over. I'm going to take over.
Okay.
They need bodies, man. Yeah. And, I think they'd love to trot him out there. And especially if they're out of it at the end of the year, he's definitely getting an extra start or two. Kyle Teal was 3 years old when he made his debut. Can you believe that? When Rich Hill made his big league debut, Kyle Teel was 3,
And now he's catching bullpens in Worcester.
which is going to be good for Kyle Teal's defensive development as well, which I'm very excited about. And they've got all those guys up there in Worcester, which is fun. I'm here for it. Like I love just seeing how old pitchers can get and
Guys
just
can
still,
get.
yeah, and just still somehow succeed. Um, I mean, I can't wait to get the velo ratings and all that good stuff. Speaking of old, even though he's not that old age wise, but he's been around for a while. Kershaw looks like Kershaw again last time out. That was really fun to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're talking about age. The guy that we just discussed, Paul Skeens, is exactly half of the age of Rich Hill, 22 versus 44.
That's crazy to think about. I'm
Crazy.
excited. Yeah. We were due for another. It was Jamie Moyer, then Bartolo Colon. We were due for another. And
We
Rich Hill
needed
might
another.
be our guy.
Yeah, I love that this guy just won't give it up. Just keep going. His last 2 outings of the year last year were scoreless, and he punched out 4. It was 3 innings, no runs, no earned runs, 4 Ks, no walks. So more of that. Would love to see. I mean, I'm tuning in when Rich Hill's throwing. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. Couple other guys. Roki Sasaki. There was a report from Bob Nightingale that apparently Sasaki may stay in Japan next year. I know there was building steam that he would be posted after this and he would sign one of those discounted deals that Otani did. Otani kind of got out of that agreement prematurely, and that's why he didn't get that mega deal out of Japan. He had to go through arbitration. Roki Sasaki would in turn stay in Japan. This guy has made 12 starts this year, has a 2.15 ERA. In 71 innings, Sasaki is K'ing 10.5 per 9, walking 2.5 per 9. And this somehow is the biggest struggle bus that Roki Sasaki has been on in his career to this point.
Yeah, so I don't want to like put my tinfoil cap on, and you know how much we like to avoid like speculating any.
He was hurt for a minute at the beginning of the year.
That's what I was gonna get to. So thank you for like leading me into it without just like I very much wonder if they just don't even want to risk it with the medicals at this point. You know, because everyone's like, oh, why wouldn't he come? He can make so much money. Why wouldn't he come? He can dominate here. Even if it hasn't been that good of a year, everyone knows how good he can be, blah, blah, blah. He's been hurt for a good portion of this year. He missed a good deal of time. If I'm not mistaken, he made a start on like June 8th, and then we didn't see him again until the first day of August. And
Sasaki was shelved, quote, due to the poor condition of his right arm after his start against the Hiroshima Carp on June 8th.
Poor condition of his arm. Yeah. Velo has fluctuated this year for sure. Like there's been starts where he's 95. And then, I mean, we saw last year it was 99 every single start for the most part. So I think the reason why, and this is just me, is that if it doesn't go well in terms of you sign the deal or you go through the medicals, whatever, and teams find those things, you can't go back. Like you go back and say, okay, well, I'm not going to sign now. I'll show I'm healthy. That's still going to hang over you. Right. So like, I think making sure he gets healthy, puts together a full season is probably what they're hoping to do here, because clearly he was not healthy this year. Like there's no way around that. The poor condition of his right arm. Yeah, his velocity was down pretty significantly. I understand that 99 is really high, but I mean, it was down and he missed a lot of time. So,
and he still has a 2-1.
And yes, which is the craziest part. It's a high effort delivery, man. Like personally, I know how good he is and I know how excited people are about him. And if Yamamoto already got hurt, like, and this guy's having this history coming in, I get it. It's all pitchers, but seeing how much you got to pay for these guys.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go there. I really wouldn't.
Really?
I wouldn't. He's already hurt. I just don't see I don't understand the risk tolerance there all of a sudden for teams that are so afraid all the time. And then it's okay. Here's $300 million. Again, and I got it with Yamamoto because of the durability side of things. If we have a guy now that's already really struggling, like I think has a lot more effort in his delivery, and I think is more fastball dependent. I look, don't get me wrong, I love him on my team, right. But if it's going to require $200+ million, people were saying he might get more than Yamamoto. I'm good.
My counter is ripple off the field in global marketing. It's hard to attach a firm price point to that.
Sure.
And obviously you're not going to get clean Yamamoto numbers because Otani is on the same team. but like I would be very curious to know what Shohei Ohtani did in terms of global marketing and revenue generated for the LA Angels when he came over. And
No,
that is
no doubt.
probably like, I would want to really put that through the ringer in terms of a vetting process. And when that spits out a number that is probably ludicrously massive, I would think about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, totally. And the funniest part is like this year, as you said, like even through the down, relatively speaking, year, he's still striking out 29% of batters, if I'm not mistaken. And the secondary stuff is good, but he struggled to throw strikes to the same degree too. Like I really think he's throwing through something this year. So
Yeah.
I think teams probably kind of, I'm assuming is representatives kind of put some feelers out, and teams are like, of course we're interested, but you know,
Are you
you're
healthy?
not gonna you're not gonna get the blank check right now. Like, and I think that's why he's gonna go back and try to build himself back up, and then we'll see from there. I mean, we're talking about a splitter strike rate that went from 68%
Which is
down
absurd.
to 54% this year. So the velo dropped, the feel for it kind of dropped, and I mean, again, this is a really high effort delivery. I would be nervous.
Yeah. Last but not least, Corbin Carroll has 10 homers in the last 29 games. Army wrote an article about him. Your thoughts?
Yeah. So, when we dove into it, of course, like there was a bunch of things, in that piece that we highlighted. And I know like the one thing that I was really focused on was, how the overstriding would affect him against four seamers at the top specifically.
Yeah.
And then the residual effects of that, right? If you're affected by four seamers at the top because you're hardy to them, you're going to start to try to swing earlier. And if you're going to try to start to swing earlier, you're going to chase more fastballs above the top of the zone, and you're going to chase more breaking balls out front and roll over. You're also, if you're struggling with the higher four seam fastballs, you're not going to slug nearly as much. You're going to pop up more, all that good stuff. The results of that was because of that big like split that he was almost doing before his swing, where he would just totally lose the back hip, and his landing position was almost like when both of your feet are slipping below you and you're about to do a split. And yeah, how do you get your hands to a pitch on top of you when you're that wide? And clearly he really struggled to turn around velocity and specifically stuff in the upper half of the strike zone. I looked at the mechanics over the last month, and if you look at his landing point as he's swinging, and also just where his bat position is right before he launches, not nearly as wrapped. He keeps it in a much more comfortable spot. He's much more narrow at foot strike. There's times where we'll get a little bit wider, but that's like the B swing, right? Instead of being super wide every single time, when he's fooled, he can still get away with it. Whereas he was automatically kind of going to the B swing before. So narrower, more powerful, better posture, bats in a better position. I'm like, okay, well, I wonder what the data looks like. First 84 games, which is, these were the criteria that we were looking at, some of the reasons why I thought he was struggling. Pop-up percentage was 27%. Hard hit launch angle, meaning of all the balls that he is hitting above 95 miles per hour, what's the average launch angle there, was 9 degrees. He was only pulling 14% of balls because the barrel was getting stuck behind him and his body was drifting, and he was chasing at a 22% clip. So that's on four-seam fastballs. Yeah. In his last 32 games, and that's a 63 batted ball sample, right? So 27% pop-up, 9-degree hard hit launch angle, only a 14% pull rate, and a 22% chase rate. It's on 63 batted balls. In his last 32 games, 34 batted balls. So he's already putting the ball in play more, which is interesting if you look at a per game basis there. Pop-up percentage is cut by 10%. His hard hit launch angle more than doubles to 21.5 degrees. His pull percentage goes from 14% to 44%. He went from not pulling a single extra base hit to multiple homers in the top half of the zone on fastballs. And his chase rate on fastballs at the top half of the zone goes from 22% to 7%. Small sample, but when you have the mechanical adjustment there, and then all of those criteria that we highlighted as residual effects of the mechanical issue last year or in the early part of the year, yeah, I'm fully buying that this man is back. But based on everything that the initial piece assessed, and I think the fact that he's playing well now and those batted ball points are all better, I think that should kind of back what he's doing. I think Corbin Carroll has figured it out again, and he's back to his form. And of course, now that I said that, he's going to go for 20 with a bunch of pop-ups, as you joked, and a lot more chase. But when I have a mechanical adjustment like this and the data shift is this stark, even in a small sample, I'm bought in. I think we're going to see the Corbin Carroll we were used to before the rest of the way.
And if Ketel Marte can bounce back from a minimum stay on the injured list, I mean, we're looking at a 1-2 punch that is as formidable as any in baseball. And I know the Dodgers exist. And I mean, the Yankees, I'll say in the National League, because the Yankees are the Yankees. But dude, like Carroll and Marte, when they're right, they are a force to be reckoned with. That'll do it for us. Yeah, I think it'll be Peter and you tomorrow on the Just Baseball Show. So, everybody enjoy. Every link you need is in the episode description, and we will talk to you tomorrow.